A creative with a graphic design background teams up with a business student. It might sound like the setup for a punchline, but for Weezie Towels, it's the beginning of a remarkable journey. Co-founder Liz Eichholtz shares the story behind this luxury bath linen brand, from its humble origins to its ambitious plans for the future. Join us as we explore how Weezie Towels is redefining traditional bath linens with a modern twist, including the art of embroidery and monogramming. Welcome to Grandma's Silver, where tradition meets today. I'm Allie, your host and the founder of the Grand Millennial Lifestyle. Here, we blend aesthetics with nostalgia, engaging in conversations with lifestyle brands, designers, and more to rediscover the timeless charm of the past. Join me as we journey from home to heart, illuminating the past and polishing the present with the gleam of Grandma's Silver. All right. I am so excited to chat with you today, Liz. If you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself, I know you are a co-founder as well. So if you want to also talk about your business partner for a moment, your brand, give us a little introduction to who you are and what Weezie is all about.
Yes, I would love to. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I am Liz Eichholtz, the co-founder and creative director of Weezie Towels. My co-founder is Lindsay Johnson, and she is the CEO, and we launched in 2018.
Amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about how Weezie Towels even came to be?
So I'm originally from Austin, Texas, and I was about to go to the University of Texas, but at the very last minute, I switched to the University of Georgia, just decided I wanted a little bit of a change and to get out of the state. And there I studied graphic design. They have an incredible art school. I can't say enough things about the program. So I went into the graphic design program, and then after graduation, I immediately went to New York and I was hired for the in-house design team at Uncommon Goods. It was an incredible first job. I learned so much, and I feel like in retrospect, it taught me so much for Weezie, and I'm utilizing a lot of what I learned there now. I was there for about 3 years, and then I was poached to be the first creative director at bustle.com, which is now BDG Media.
Okay, amazing.
And I had really both ends of the spectrums in terms of experience and company size. Uncommon Goods was a really large established company, hundreds of people, their own warehouse, a huge creative team. And then Bustle was a startup. I started with 15 people in a brownstone in Brooklyn, and then 2 years later, I left, or 2.5, 3 years later, I left with 300 people in a high rise in Manhattan. So I really got to experience both ends of the spectrum. And during that time with Bustle, I think it was like towards the end, I also launched a little bit of a side hustle called Tempe Row, and it was a silk sleep mask company. So I've always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, and that was my first time dipping my toe in to having my own company. I got engaged. I'm trying to remember where the years fall. I got engaged and while I was still working at Bustle, and had the typical experience registering at a big box store. I had my gun and I was going around with my then fiance quickly picking things out. And then it came to the time that we were registering for towels. And I feel like one thing growing up that my mom made very clear was like the tiers of towels. Like we had our nice towels that were for guests and for the grown-ups that we weren't allowed to use. And then we had the kids' towels. And then after the kids' towels retired, it was like the rags. So I was excited to get the tier 1 nice towels. And, it was for a registry. So someone else was buying them. So we're moving and grooving with our registry gun. And we had the moment where we came to the towel wall. And I am just generally a curious person and started asking questions. Why is this bath towel $100 and this one's $50? Is it the materials? Is it the way they're made? Are they different sizes? Are they different weights? And the sales rep was not particularly informed. And I was like, well, I don't want to buy the $100 towel, or I don't want to register for the $100 towel if it's not actually nicer. Can you just point me to the nicest towel that is also a good buy?
Mm-hmm.
They weren't super helpful and ended up getting a blind recommendation from my mom. She told me to go with a brand. And even within that brand, there were 3 options, and I couldn't really understand why one was more expensive than the other. So end up finally picking one and decided I wanted to get it embroidered. I'm not someone who has monograms everywhere, but I do feel like I grew up with embroidered towels in the South, and I was so excited to also put my new initials on them.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at this huge store and I went to go get them embroidered, and the entire process was so antiquated. We looked through a binder and I couldn't see how my initials were going to look in the different styles. I couldn't see if I liked an E in the style that I picked out. So end up again blindly picking one of the options. And then she told me it would be 12 to 14 weeks before they would be ready. And at this time, I was living in New York, really during kind of like the direct to consumer boom. We had Glossier and Away, Suitcases and Outdoor Voices, and all of these companies where the whole customer experience was so geared towards a seamless transaction. So to then go have this experience and not be able to understand the differences and then have this antiquated embroidery experience, I honestly just had a typical moment of there has to be a better way. My now co-founder was one of my best friends living in New York at the time. She had just left a career in finance and was starting at Columbia Business School. And it started as just an innocent conversation telling her about this experience. And then the conversation just kind of snowballed. And it really was just an aligning of stars. She was trying to decide what direction she was going to take her major. She was considering real estate, but she was always interested in the consumer space.
Mm-hmm.
So then the conversation snowballed, and we felt like there was really a hole in the market for a go-to seamless luxury towel brand. We decided to go for it. And she entered a launch your startup class. So we got to really pressure test the idea, pressure test working together. I mean, at that point, we had just been friends, but we had really complementary skill sets. So it was clear that it was going to work from the beginning. And it really just felt like an aligning of stars. So we worked on it for almost a full year before we launched in October of 2018.
That is amazing. And I mean, your instincts were spot on. You've done wonderfully since then.
Thank you.
What was interesting, because I did not know this about you, but did you always have a thing for linens? Because, you mentioned your sleep mask and the silk sleep masks. So is there a correlation between that? Or was there something did it just kind of work out that way?
Yeah, I think I've always been generally interested in luxury goods. Like I've always been someone who loves to find a nice gift and who considers the things in my house and would ask my mom to redo my bedroom and pick out fun sheets. So I've always had a general interest in home goods, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had told me when I was younger that I would own a towel company, I would have found it extremely shocking.
Well, it's going very well. And I actually love that the two of you do have very different backgrounds.
Yeah.
You have very more creative, and then you have the business mind. And I think and that isn't to say that, you don't have the business mind as well, or that she doesn't have the creativity, but to be able to really take those strengths and blend them and still have it be this really collaborative, creative, fun brand that is based on something very traditional. I love how you blended those and have made it come together into something that is really, really unique and did fill a hole in the market. It's just been fun to watch. I've been kind of watching along, the last few years, which are certainly not your first few, but I feel like you've been able to, there's been so much growth and so much, you have collaborations that we'll talk about in a little while, and there's all sorts of fun things happening. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. Me and Lindsay have exact opposite brains. I'm so left-brained. She's so right-brained. I think that's certainly why it worked so well in the beginning for us to partner. And then we were also able to do so much before hiring other people because we have such complementary skill sets. So that ended up working out really well for us.
How did the name come to be?
Um, it was a very winding road. It was not a linear decision at all. We actually started with a totally different name. We started with the name Georgie. We went through the entire branding exercise. We had a logo, and then literally the weekend after we finished everything, I was sitting in a friend's house and we saw a ad on the TV for a Walmart brand coming out called George, and the look
Oh,
were almost identical.
oh man.
So at that point, we decided to change it and we threw around a ton of different options. But we found common ground because Lindsay had a grandma Louise and I have an Aunt Eloise, and Weezie is a nickname for both. And we really wanted it to be a traditional name, kind of with a modern spin. And we felt like Weezie represented that really well.
I love that.
We view the company in general as such a tradition, a modern take on a traditional space. So we
Hmm.
wanted to reflect that as well.
And that's such a nice personal meaning to it. The
Yeah,
universe had a fun plan for you there. I like that.
it was definitely a blessing in disguise. And I think it's memorable. When we first launched, people asked if it was associated with the rapper. Um, so that threw us for a loop at first, but I think people have gotten over it now.
Oh my gosh. Now talk to us a little bit about, I mean, I know you've mentioned, the luxury linen space. What is
Yeah.
the design philosophy? Talk to us a little bit about that. You're focused on craftsmanship and quality. How do you differentiate yourself as a brand?
That was something that we thought about a lot, obviously, before we launched. Kind of, how is this towel going to be different than what's out there? So before we found a manufacturer really did anything, we ordered every towel on the market and, within reason, to really define what our perfect towel would be. We used them, we washed them, we dried them, we studied the materials, we studied how they were made. And we ended up wanting, our goal was to have, and also we gathered a lot of customer feedback. We sent survey monkeys out to anyone and everyone that we could and got tons of responses and took all of those into account. So we knew from the beginning that our goal was to have a towel that was really soft, but also still absorbent and didn't take forever to dry. I had my daughter in January of 2018, and the same week, Lindsay took all of our favorite towels to a manufacturing conference to show manufacturers we like this about this towel, we want to change this about this towel, and we kind of created our perfect blueprint. And we found a manufacturer that just understood exactly what we were trying to do, and they in tandem were trying to do the same thing and had procured this special spinning technology. So
Okay.
again, it's kind of aligned there. We ended up with this 100-year-old family-owned factory in Portugal, and we have this special spinning technology that pumps air into the cotton fibers while it's being spun. These little air pockets make the towel extremely absorbent, but as you wash it, these air pockets actually expand, so the towels get fluffier and softer with each wash. So it's
Okay.
exactly what we set out to create. It's equal parts soft, fluffy, and absorbent. In terms of the other details, we were really thoughtful about things like what is our GSM going to be? And then you always want to have 100% long staple cotton, length equals strength. Any
Okay.
luxury towel that you buy should have long staple cotton. So that's kind of table stakes. And then we've layered on this special spinning technology. So that's really the edge of our towels. After we master the quality in terms of the design craftsmanship, we decided we did not want the dobby that's on a lot of towels. We wanted it to just be straight, and we wanted to have piping, and then all of our towels have a rounded corner. We thought that kind of softened the look, and that the piping looks really beautiful with embroidery. And then they all have special details like our hanging hooks to dry the towels in between uses. And then as we started to expand our products, all those little special details show up in each product. So our robe has attached ties and buttons on the cuff. So we really think quality first, and then we go into kind of these design details.
I love that you're actually giving it that much thought because that makes it, I mean, there's the luxury,
Right.
you
Yeah, we
know.
definitely think more about towels than any human on this earth should.
But that's appropriate because it part, I think, of the luxury of your investment as a consumer is to not need to put the thought into it because even look at your experience as a young, not quite newlywed, but fiance
Right. Yeah.
shopping, not sure what to look for, if you had seen something like what is now your product on the shelves, it would have taken the guesswork right out of it, because to recognize even the attention to detail is
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah. And that I think
I think
sets it
because,
apart.
thank you. Yeah, I think because this was inspired by an actual personal experience, Weezie was really the company that I was looking for at that time, to your point. So we always go back to that experience that I had and really try to revisit that each year. Like, are we still solving for that original problem? Are we making this easy for people? Are we leaving out the jargon? We really just want to have this understanding that, like, these are the nicest towels on the market and we've got you, and they're always going to be, and we're always going to be obsessing about the details. That's our job, not yours. So
Yes. And those are needs. Some of those needs are things, especially if we start to talk about, because I know you have a variety of products is where I'm trying to go with this. You have a variety of products, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you have something, and then you realize what you were missing.
yeah,
So, you're talking about robes that have buttons, or the towel hook on
right.
the towel.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things are details that the average person might not even think about because it's just part of their routine to suffer.
Yeah.
But until you don't have to, you realize how special it is to have someone who's thinking about those things on your behalf. So
Yeah. And a lot of
amazing.
that came from that initial customer feedback that we requested before we even launched. For example, people complained about getting makeup towels on they want white towels, but then they get makeup stains on those towels. So then we came out with our makeup towels, and that's still our best seller. Or complaining about when they wash their hands, their sleeves getting wet, or losing their robe tie in the wash. So we've really used that initial list and kind of launched products in accordance with the biggest complaints that we saw.
I love it. And that actually brings me to, if you could give us a little bit of a rundown of what some of your products are, what does make them special. I've already did a little bit of that, but I'll hand that over to you and let you kind of run through some of those things.
Yeah. So we launched initially with just our bath towels. Now we have all the sizes. So bath towels, hand towels, washcloths, bath sheets, which not everyone is familiar with, but it's just an oversized bath towel. And if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend. It is pure snuggly luxury. And then, as I mentioned, our makeup towels, which are our best seller, they're navy washcloths with really cute eyelids embroidered on them, so that you don't stain your white towels. And now we do patterned towels, and we have white towels with a variety of different colored piping. We have solid colored towels. And then outside of the towel category, we launched robes for women, men, children. We launched a children's line. So we have hooded towels. You can also get those in white with colored piping, but now we've been releasing cute little bunny ones with patterns. We have beach towels. We have kitchen towels. We're starting to get into also some more like niche activities. So we have golf towels and tennis towels, and we're coming out with a fishing towel in a few days, a yoga towel, hair towels. And then a big part of our business is our collaborations. So we do a lot of collaborations that span a lot of the products that I just mentioned that will be limited edition. Once they sell out, they're gone for good. For example, we just launched one with an interior designer, Katie Ritter. So we took her wallpaper and fabric patterns and wove them into our towels and robes. We did a picnic blanket with a different pattern. Those are some of my favorite things that I do, or that we launch, because it's so much fun to come together with another creative and launch something that we otherwise wouldn't. And then a huge part of our business is our embroidery. Our core bath line is produced in Portugal, but our company is headquartered in Atlanta, and we do all of our fulfillment and all of our embroidery in Atlanta. And about the percentage will change from time to time, but it stays around 60% of people will embroider products. So it's a huge part of our business.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Our conversation is pretty aligned here, where my brain is going, and where I think some of the things you're saying. So you mentioned, you love the collaborations, you love that creative piece. One of my questions, I have two questions for you and maybe this goes hand in hand. You let me know. As someone who does a lot of the creative work with the brand, what elements are you the most passionate about? And then also, what are your sources of, I think you kind of were saying you start with solving a problem, which makes all the sense in the world. But when you get to the creative side and the design, where do you find your inspiration when you're not working on a collaboration? But then when you are collaborating, what does that process look like? Because you're bringing somebody else in who kind of has the design vision and you're executing it onto your product. So how does that collaboration look for you? But then when you're working individually, or not individually, but without your collaborative partner coming in, what does it look like? And how do they differ? What's the process?
The design process has really changed every single year. I think when we launched, we had such a clear vision of what was next and what the product roadmap looked like, because it was, for lack of a better word, kind of obvious. We were going to start with bath towels, and then we were going to go into robes, and then we were going to do the hooded towels for kids and baby robes, and then bath mats. Our bath mats are one of my favorite products. If you haven't tried our bath mat, you should. Bath rugs and beach towels. So once, the first few years was kind of launching all of those more obvious products and then testing new colors. And we've done white. Now we want to do patterns. Now we want to do solids. And I feel like now that we've transitioned and we kind of have that foundation laid, the design process has changed a lot. Now it's a little bit more like, I will create a vibe for the season. So I just did one that was Palm Beach in the 70s. And this is what the photography vibe is going to be. And this is the color palette for the season. And then it's really collaborative with our merchandising team. We're doing more looking back at sales, like what was softer than we anticipated, what was stronger than we anticipated. So this has been a runaway year for our kids cover-ups, for example. And we said, okay, we really want to focus on continuing to build out that kids category and giving these new customers that came in for the cover-up something else to buy. So we're going to do a kids camp towel.
And then fun. I love that.
Yeah. So it's really different than it was in the beginning, when it was, okay, what do we want our bath mat to be like? We want to have non-slip dots, and people complained that their bath mats got musty. Let's make sure that it has the hanging hook. It's now transitioned a little bit more into, are we going to do solids or patterns? What colorway is selling? But there's still a lot of fun new things coming. I think in the beginning, we were really married to staying in our lane in the bathroom. I think especially when you launch a company, you want to be so cohesive in what you stand for and what you represent, so that when a customer encounters you, they can really wrap their head around who you are, what you stand for. Okay, Weezie is luxury bath goods. But I think as you grow, or as we grow, we've become a little bit more comfortable with stepping out. So you'll see a few more unexpected things. And especially we've invested so much in our embroidery operation that it's hard to not want to launch things that we feel like are holes in the market that would hold embroidery really well, because it's really like a second business under our roof. So, really out of left field things like we've talked about doing dog beds or dog bandanas and things like that, because I have had a hard time finding a really cute dog bed that I can embroider. And we would be able to produce that with our manufacturers and then embroider it so well. So we're kind of in never say never territory with what we're going to launch. But I think our identity will always be linked to the luxury bath space. But outside of those categories, we're launching bath accessories. And a lot of stuff is still on that initial list of things we always knew that we wanted to have, and it's just taken time. A lot of these things are just easier said than done. So bath accessories, I feel like we've gotten so close like 3 times, and then the pandemic happened and one of the factories closed and oil prices went up. So the pricing on our products changed with another factory. So I feel like I need to knock on wood, but bath accessories, for example, have been on our product roadmap from day one, and we're just now about to launch it. So all to say, the design process has looked really different every year. And then based on which products we're working on, it can look really different. And when it's in-house, it's me designing with a product design. It's been an intern, it's been an in-house position, it's changed a few times, but I'm still the one doing the majority of the designing.
Okay. And I mean, it sounds though like you enjoy being in that role.
I do. And it's very collaborative. I mean, the whole company is really weighing in.
Mm-hmm.
And my co-founder too, I like always joke with her that she has such better taste than she realizes because I rely on her a ton. I need guardrails because I have so many ideas. I really want someone to tell me yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could go on iterating forever. And she's really that person for me. So, and then when we're working in an actual collaboration, it's a totally different process. And same thing, we kind of have a dream list of collaborators that we're working our way through. And we've had a lot of pinch me moments that the people that we've been dying to work with agree or also want to work with us. And we're still kind of going through that list, but it's driven really from me and Lindsay and other people on our team, just making a list of people that we would love to work with. We love their taste or their products or their patterns based on who the person is. If it's like Katie Ritter, for example, she's always been one of my favorite designers. I love her use of color and pattern. And then I love the patterns in her wallpaper and fabric line and knew that a lot of them would translate really well to our products.
Mm-hmm.
So the process with collaborators is really different based on who we're working with.
I believe it was with Katie's collaboration, the picnic blanket. How do you determine which products and how much does your collaborator weigh in on which products to go with?
For lack of a better word, it's very collaborative. We're in step together the whole time. So they get full approval of everything. In terms of which products we're going to go with, I work with the merchandising team, same way I mentioned before, on what are we trying to comp something from last year in a certain category? Do we need a beach item in this launch? Do we need a robe in this launch? So she kind of gives us guardrails in terms of what categories we want to touch on. And then we're also balancing that with who we're working with. Are their patterns going to look good on a robe? Are they going to look good on a beach blanket? And then we'll place partnerships seasonally based on that type of information. It also depends on who we're working with. Is their team set up to do the artwork and make changes? Typically, we're the ones designing and presenting to them, but there have been instances where a team will present things to us. I think as we've gotten older in the business and more established, that's happening more. It used to be that we were coming to people that felt like reaches and we would come super over prepared and really try to kind of wow them with a presentation and convince them to work with us when we were in our infancy. But as the harder we've worked, that has started to change a little, which has been nice.
I think that almost opens up, it makes the collaboration more interesting, maybe in some ways, because you're able to see what they're coming to you with.
Exactly.
I think when you're in your own unrelated, but I had an event planning company for many years. And so I used to propose a lot of, not the same ideas, but you see a lot of clients, right, who would want a lot of the same things because just like anything else, things go through trends and different periods. And it was always fun when someone would come in, or the collaboration with different vendors, like a florist. Those were the best conversations, is when you get to work with those other vendors, because then you're like, oh, wait, we could just totally step outside of this box and do this. I love that you're able to honestly be that way.
Right. I'm to the point, especially with collaborations, that I really only want to do ones where someone has a really specific idea and it's something that we would not produce on our own otherwise, because, we're splitting profits in most cases. So if it's something that we're going to produce on our own, why do that? So I want when people come in now with such a specific perspective and ideas, like that's what I'm looking for in collaborations. I want to interview you because you have the most interesting. Talk about both sides of your brain.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like the anthropology bit makes so much sense and all of that. but it's archaeology, right? Is the other
Yeah,
thing.
I used to laugh when I had my event planning company. The joke, I used to call myself Indiana J-Lo, because it was like the archaeologist turned wedding planner.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, really? Like, how did you, it is a very, in my brain, it was such an obvious transition how I got from A to B, but people are like, how
Yeah.
did you go from the dirt
Right.
to
When it's on
weddings?
paper. Yeah.
And it is a story, but it was,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's fun too, because it's interesting. You know, I was talking to my mom about the podcast, and she, you know, she saw the whole like grand millennial and my Instagram and all that. But then the
Yeah.
podcast, she was like, oh, you're actually truly blending. Cause I've always loved to talk about people and their stories and the sort of the
Well,
sociology piece.
anthropology.
And, you know,
Yeah.
she's like, oh my gosh, you are using your degree. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, good.
Yeah.
Finally.
I do feel like interior design is so linked to psychology in many ways.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's incredible. And, you know, what's so funny is I got super into, I've always loved design, but I got super into it because, and I started Grand Millennial Life. I've talked about this separately, and sorry, this is such a sidetrack.
No, I love
But
it.
I started the Instagram because I was depressed. And I still owned the event
It's
planning
such an
company,
outlet.
and the Instagram was an outlet. And this is where I will go, to this
Yeah.
little square. And it just grew and grew and grew.
When we first launched, I felt like Instagram was a similar outlet for me because it felt like we were still in the stages of, is this going to work? Are we crazy? Are we really doing this? We're these two random girls launching a towel company and we have no background in this. And then I felt like Instagram was it's so much smoke and mirrors, but I felt like it was the place that I could really show people what the company was going to be and what I wanted it to represent, and that it was going to be this traditional product in the luxury space, but we were going to make it so fun and not stuffy. And I felt like it was me and Lindsay in a warehouse with our first hire was a embroiderer, and that I could create this whole world on Instagram. And we would never show behind the scenes at that time because we were like, we can't show people this like warehouse with stained floors because it's not luxury and our brand is
Right.
luxury. And I felt like I could create this whole world on Instagram, and that as people understood it and started to follow and adopted it, I was like, okay, if we can create this, it's going to work. Like people are getting it. And I felt like I could say, let me show y'all how much more interesting this bathroom can be. Yes, a towel is a utilitarian object that you physically use to dry off, but let me show you how it can be a piece of art in this bathroom and a fixture. And now let's go into who the designer is. Let me tell you about her story. And now let's talk about sourcing. And I feel like we got to create this whole editorial world and bring all of this interest. And I'll always remember this moment that one of my friends told me her younger brother called her and was like, why am I so interested in this towel company? Why do I keep lingering on their Instagram? And I was like, that is what I'm trying to create, this whole editorial story and this whole world behind what has been viewed as such a utilitarian product.
I can scroll on Instagram and see a lot of different brands. You know, things get pushed to you all the time. You follow different things. If I stop on an image, I can instantly recognize it as not just because a lot of your photos are shown, it's not just like a product image.
Yeah. Like
You have
wallpaper
it in a space, or, there's all sorts of stuff going on, but it is so instantly recognizable. And like that brand recognition is brilliant.
Thank
Even
you.
when it's a brand new product that I've never seen before, it is like you instantly know, oh, this has to be theirs. And then you click and you're like, knew it,
Yeah.
It's just you can tell. And I love that even when you have collaborations, you can tell, because I think that gets really funny. You know, I've seen other like big companies will do these collaborations with all these interior designers. And to me, it's like, oh, I can tell it's the interior designers, but I would never know it's X store.
Right.
Or X brand. But when your collaborations come out, it's like you can still tell, oh, that pattern looks familiar.
Yeah.
Where did Weezie get it?
I mean, this is music to my ears because I feel like this has been our goal. Branding is my background. I studied graphic design, like I said. So that cohesiveness is really what they teach you when you're studying branding. Like, just be as cohesive and consistent as you can be. And like I said before, that's how a customer is going to really grasp your brand. And so I probably drive everyone in our company crazy with how cohesive and consistent I do want to be, but that is why. And I think
Well, it's
also,
working.
thank you. We're also still such a small team, small but mighty. So I'm still doing all the photography. I just passed off the social media. I did it for 6 years, you know? So
Wow.
I think because we are still so involved in every touch point, I hope it remains that cohesive and consistent, but you're giving me motivation to make sure it stays that way.
Let's bring it back really quickly to embroidery, because that is
Yeah.
such a big facet of the business. Talk to us about how you decided to start incorporating that. How many, I know you talked a little bit about the challenge that you faced and that it was very antiquated, and
Yeah.
what has grown to now, because it's huge.
When I had that first experience, there were a few problems that we were trying to solve for. One, I couldn't see what my letters were going to look like in each style. So we knew we wanted to have a digital preview. And people always ask us what Shopify plugin that is. It is not a Shopify plugin. It is a custom digital preview. We invested a lot of time and energy and money in it. But we want people to be able to see the scale of their monogram, what their letters are going to look like, the general placement. Of course, it is not a perfect preview. We're going to continue to improve upon it. But that was a huge thing we were solving for. So the digital preview, our lead times. So being able in that initial experience, they told me it was going to be 12 to 14 weeks, which as a millennial consumer seemed insane to me at the time. I was used to, we're Amazon shoppers. Things show up the next 14 weeks is a lifetime. So we knew we wanted to own the embroidery process instead of outsourcing it so that we could really control the quality, the lead times. Our stuff arrived so fast that sometimes people write in and say, I think there's been a mistake. My item's already here. So the digital preview, the lead times, and then the styles, we wanted to keep them really curated and feel like we had enough for every taste. We have feminine options and masculine options. We have traditional options and modern, but we didn't want there to be analysis paralysis, because I felt like in my experience, I went through this binder with so many options. I couldn't remember what I had seen. And then I was second guessing which ones I wanted. So we're always going to keep it really streamlined. I mean, one day we hope to introduce something like bespoke embroidery. So if you want to do a wedding crest, or you have a really specific idea in your mind of, I want this antique monogram that I saw, we can help you come up with that, but it'll be a totally different process.
Right.
So a really curated selection, and then really curated thread colors. We do matte thread instead of shiny thread. We're really responsive to our customers. If a thread color is consistently the worst seller, we sunset it. Same thing with the styles. If it seems like one has gone stale, we'll introduce a new one. So we're really responsive to our customers in that regard. I mean, it's been a part of the company from day one. It's always been a large percentage of our orders, and it remains that way. So
which products offer embroidery?
Right now, all of them except for slippers. We used to offer embroidery on slippers, and TMI, it became really hard with the hoops. Things were not lining up completely straight. So we're reworking that product to be able to embroider it easier. So right now, as we run through the rest of the inventory, you can embroider them, but that's really it.
Okay.
We came out with just monograms, but then also a few scripts and serifs and sans serifs. So you can do names. We see zip codes. We've seen more and more funny sayings. And I think it's something that I love to see, because monogramming is typically so traditional. And I think, we set out to be this modern take on in a traditional space. And we've seen the same thing really happen with our monograms. So of course, the majority are still doing their beautiful 3-letter traditional monograms. We're seeing a lot of single letters. We're seeing zip codes and street names and funny sayings. We just had a show house do I think one towel said good and the other said looking. And it's funny little phrases like that.
I love it.
Yeah, we're seeing it really come into modern times, which is fun. But then we also launched icons. So not all of the products are eligible for icons, a lot of the children's products, and you can see on the embroidery preview, it'll show you your options for that product. But so we have our traditional monograms, single letters, the scripts, the sans serifs, the serifs, icons, and we are working on applique, which has been a
Ooh.
really big undertaking, but has been on the dream list from day one. It's very manual. It requires different machines. There's a reason that almost nobody does it at scale, but we're getting very, very close. So stay tuned.
We will. One of my last questions for you is kind of along these lines because you, again, you touched on something I was already sort of thinking, which was
Yeah.
what ways are people uniquely utilizing the embroidery?
Yeah.
But if we're talking about gift giving, because we're getting into a lot of summer celebrations, even if you're listening to this and you're off season and it's like the holidays are around the corner, what are some ways or some popular items for people who are thinking about gift giving to utilize your products, but then also the embroidery features?
I love a good affirmation. We're seeing a lot of those. So we've seen hair towels with YGG, you go girl. I love an affirmation on a bath mat. You look at it every day. You look down in the morning. Who doesn't want to see something positive? Like, you got this. And then the icons are really fun to gift. So we have great new toiletry bags, and we have the cutest little shell icon. I love the shell on our toiletry bags, or a palm tree. So I think the icons are great for gifting, zip codes or street names, but I say go for the affirmations. We also love giving advice on embroidery.
Oh,
And
good to know.
yeah,
Okay.
DM, holler at weezietowels.com. I mean, I feel like I haven't even touched on this, but our customer service is a huge part of the business. We pretty much are 100% happiness guaranteed. Like, if you write in with a a problem, we're going to make it right. So we're also super responsive with design questions. And those
Oh,
are
that's
some
so
of,
fun. I
yeah.
love that.
So if you're giving a gift and you want some help deciding on embroidery, write in and we will help you every step of the way.
Amazing. I'll probably be taking advantage of that. You'll get emails
Yeah,
from me
please do.
soon.
DM me. I love
Perfect. Perfect. The last thing I have for you is if there was anything more evergreen, because if someone could be tuning into this at any point, you want people, or that's like on the horizon.
Okay, so in terms of what to look out for, we are officially launching our designer shop. So like I said, all of our collaborations are limited edition. So once they're gone, they're gone. And then we'll have people discover Weezie after a collaboration has sold out and they're so bummed because Peter Dunham is their favorite designer and they wanted the fig beach towel. So we're going to bring back a few of our collaborations into the designer shop. So stay tuned there. It'll be a nice place for those to live and for people to go see the past ones and what's coming. So definitely check out the designer shop. And then like I said, applique is coming. So we're getting very, very close. Look out for it in the summer. And it won't be on every product to start. It's going to be a little bit of a soft launch. We're going to, make sure to really quality control it. But we're extremely excited about that. And then Liberty, we're going to have a whole Liberty collection coming out, which will span a few different categories, which I can't wait for.
I'm so excited. I get excited every time you guys post, but this is fun. This is fun advanced knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, bath accessories have been a long time coming, and they're going to come in two really fun different forms. We're working with an amazing paper marbler in India. So we're going to do a round of bath accessories with paper marbling, and then also some lacquered ones. So two very different vibes.
I love lacquer. Love it.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Amazing.
And painted element on there and scallops. We can never have enough scallops. So
that's my favorite. One of my favorite things about your products.
Thank you.
This is amazing. Thank you so much. I'm going to make
course.
sure to post, I'll post definitely your website, definitely your social media profiles. That way people can access them from our show notes, nice and easy. But I
Awesome.
highly encourage everyone go check everything out, both the Instagram and your website. Again, as we enter a lot of graduations, family celebrations, baby bridal showers, now is the time to take a peek, because if you are looking for a unique, honestly, heirloom quality gift for someone in your life, this is like, I could not recommend y'all's brand enough. And yeah, just thank you so, so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun.